if you look at any other brands, is there anyone else out there, David, that you've kind of looked at them? Because I think there's been some real rock stars and a real rogues gallery of kind of people that have got it really right during COVID as a brand, and then other people that have got it really wrong. Any kind of thought, anyone that's inspired you with any of the activity they've been up to?
Shouldn't be so biased, but to say most of the people who inspire me are at Edge. We've got such a great team, and they're always coming up with interesting things. But I think with the brand side of things, it's really interesting because previously for brands, they've had so many channels that they can connect with their customers and community with, whether it be cinema, whether it be, sponsorship, whether it's sports events, also live events, sort of music festivals, things like that, where brands have been able to do it. So then what's happened is because of COVID and not being able to have those, there's been this mad rush. Oh, we've got to go online. We've got to be digital. We've got to start doing, digital activations and that. And it doesn't just work like that. And there's been, a lot of instances where, brands have come in guns blazing and it's been very negative. I use one as an example because it's more, I suppose, the background that I come from in video games and also eSports, where I've been really impressed with what would be considered an older brand, like a brand that's traditional, as Mercedes Benz. And you'd think, Mercedes Benz, what would Mercedes Benz want to do with esports or video games? These guys are not going to buy cars, but they are looking at it and saying, our future audience, our future customers will come from this area. Yeah. And the demographics of people that play esports and video games is actually very high as far as, A-B type demographic. And there's a lot older than people think, because there's a lot of people who watch esports who are in their 30s because they've got married, they've got a job, they've got a mortgage, they haven't got time to play, but they like to watch. Yeah. And it's sort of quite surprising for people. But what Mercedes did when they first came in, they used the old traditional thing, oh, we're a car company, this is how we're going to do it. And they started putting traditional ads on, and the communities went, this is lame, this is boring. And Mercedes, what are you doing here? This is not your market. And there was a particular tournament, I think it was in Hamburg, where the professional teams were all given cars during the event to sort of get to the event, Mercedes cars, and they go and play for the day, then go back to their hotels. Yep. And one of the teams after the end of the day came out and the car had been clamped because they'd parked in the wrong spot. They took pictures of it and tweeted it then to all their followers, and everyone's going, oh, look, Mercedes been clamped. Mercedes went, oh my God, we can't have that. We can't have that. And so the marketing executives say, hey, quick, take that down because that's showing Mercedes in a negative light. But the community, this is great. No, they're down to earth. It's, it happens even to them. Yep. And they then learned that they have to speak in the same language and they have to be able to communicate with them the way people feel. They then adapted and changed, and they do some fantastic interactive activation with the community. The reason I'd say, and I'm not sure whether it's secret or not, but I did hear from someone with inside Mercedes organization, is the reason they look at this audience is that they say in the future they may not be selling cars, they will be selling time. And the people that will be first to adopt that are these generation who will say, I don't want to buy a car, but I'll buy time. So they're starting to sow that seed already. So I think they've been a fantastic one. Another one, which is DHL, freight company. They are into esports, and they've developed a really great following in that respect, which I think why, but I'll leave that for you guys to check out and look at some of their
but it's interesting though, isn't it? I think particularly with that Mercedes example, David, it kind of comes back to, I guess, your whole kind of proposition at Edge, really, which is understanding communities, understanding what makes Gen Zs tick, because, particularly coming through COVID, those guys are going to be setting, the new agenda in terms of what kind of business and brands in the world going to look like, but seen very much through that kind of post-COVID lens, which is just fascinating, isn't it? And if you're not authentic and if you're not very kind of really kind of part of the communities, then a lot of these kids are just going to see right through it, aren't they?
I mean, that's one of the things too, I think you've got to sort of recognize is, I mean, okay, I am getting older, but I do like to think, I'm not say down and with it, but I do sort of try and keep in touch there. But I have to realize that there is a line where, hey, it starts looking a bit lame if I'm trying to sort of be as cool as them and talk the same way. So we're really lucky with our company that we've actually, with our founders, multiple generations as such. I mean, Adam, my other partner, he's like half my age, and then Scott, the other partner's about half of Adam's age.
Yeah.
So it's like, we've got all bases covered to some extent.
Absolutely. It's that whole kind of wisdom and wonder that you've kind of got right through the triumvirate of you, I think, leading the company.
Yeah.
And I guess, David, we've kind of quickly rattled through our kind of 10-minute blast. So what I always like to kind of just close with, and I think particularly resonant, I think just because things are tough still at the moment, aren't they? And I think, we're still having to dig deep and find resilience through all of this, and I know it's still a kind of moving feast, but just really kind of curious to understand what you've learned about yourself during all of this.
I mean, I've been doing a number of different projects where I've been sort of to some extent working remotely, non-exec director type roles where you're not involved every day. So I sort of almost thought that, hey, look, it's not going to be a big deal for me. But I really must say I miss being with people because that's the sort of person I suppose I am, and interact with them. And I think the other thing is the separation from the work environment and your home or downtime is it's really hard when you're working from home and you stay at home of drawing that line, because you're still in the same environment. Whilst when you're in an office or going somewhere, at the end of the day, you leave that and you can leave that sort of feeling behind. As I say, I feel very much that younger people are suffering more because, they're sometimes in a very small environment. They haven't got anywhere to go. They can't go anywhere. Interesting story I heard with the big banks and in the city is before COVID, a lot of the young employees wanted to have work from home days and a lot more casual sort of days, but the boss would say, no, you've got to be here at 9 o'clock and you leave at 5 or 6 or whatever the time is. You've got to come into the office and be there. When COVID came, all the bosses went back to their big mansions in the country or whatever, and they had these things like, hey, they're working, well, this isn't too bad. I don't have to catch the train into London and commute for 2 hours a day and squash in with all these people. Hey, this is all right. And they're saying, well, we might stay like this. All the younger people who are saying, hey, we want to, they're saying, can we come back to the office? We want to, because they're getting sick of that small space they're in, and they want the interaction with people. So my thing is that people are really important. And, the fact that we're in isolation makes it even more so to realize how important people are in the whole situation. It's not just the technology, but the people, to me, are important.
Yeah, it's quite interesting, David, to hear that as your own kind of personal learning through all of this, because I guess knowing you so well and having worked with you so closely, your kind of people values and how relationship orientated you are, for me, that would almost never be a learning about you, because that's just part and parcel of who you are. But it's interesting that you really, really kind of feel that through all of this. So, but I guess hopefully, David, come the spring, we can be going out again and showing these young kids how it's done, right?
Well, that's the thing. It's pretty hard to go and do a deal without having a drink in your hands.
Absolutely. Well, listen, it's been a pleasure and a blast, as I knew it would be, chatting to you. So thank you so much for your time. I will let you get back to Edge, and I will speak to you soon.
Thanks, Dawn. It's a pleasure.
Take care now. Bye-bye.